At the end, believe in yourself and anything is possible. Believe and become. But yes, there is a difference between only believing and not doing anything. That's why the three periods. You have to believe, you have to do your deed, and then you will become something successful. Thank you. Hi, everyone from the JECRC College. I am Soumyajit Bhattacharyay, and I will be delivering a small session on cracking tech giants made easy. And definitely, I will try my best to probably introduce you all to whatever is required right from the first year and till fourth year. I have tried to go it explain here till fourth year as to what all things are required. And maybe you will find it useful. So the first question that anybody should ask is actually, what do you mean by tech giants? Is it just as Sanjay Gosar said, is it just Google, Microsoft, maybe Facebook, Salesforce, only these 4 or 5 companies, or there are like hundreds and hundreds of other very good companies that are out there which are like doing brilliant work and that are giving you good compensation, good work-life balance, as well as benefits. So the concept of tech giant is definitely, there are some companies which are bigger than the other companies, and tech giant per se is a good concept in the corporate world. But for us, being engineers, being professionals, rather than only fighting for getting into those 4 or 5 companies, we should think about what kind of work we will be doing and what kind of ultimately what kind of impact we will be having after doing that kind of work. So the concept of tech giant for an engineer does not hold much merit. It's kind of a myth that we only have, at least in India as of now, we only have these 4 or 5 good companies where we can do good work. In fact, there are like hundreds and hundreds of such companies that are present here in India, which are like offering you good compensation, maybe even more than what the tech giants that we know as of now they offer. They are offering you good work-life balance and benefits. So the first thing that everyone, be it your first year student or a fourth year student or anyone who is present here, right? First thing, you should always be open to the companies that are present and not just focus yourself into 3 or 4 different companies that are present. So first and foremost, the only thing that I would like to say is that there are like hundreds and hundreds of different companies, and success is definitely not measured by someone getting into, let's say, Microsoft, or someone getting into Google is successful, and someone who is not getting into Google or is getting into some other company is not successful at all. So success is never measured by someone getting into one particular company or person, but the type of work and the type of impact that you do whenever you will be graduating and you will be entering the professional world. So what is required there? So here there are like 2 aspects to it. One is an aspect where the requirement is from cracking an interview, and the other aspect is succeeding after cracking an interview. So these are 2 different things that are present right now. So what is required ultimately for cracking an interview? You guys will be joining in at an SDE1 level, right? Which is basically the role that is given for freshers. Now the nomenclature of the role can be different. For example, in Google, SD1 is known as software engineer 2. In Walmart, it is known as SD2, and so on and so forth. Or in some other company, it may be known as a member of technical staff. So the nomenclature or the naming of that particular designation doesn't matter. What matters is the type of role that you will be doing and the type of responsibilities you will be entrusted to when you start working. So first things first, for interviewing purposes, obviously most of your interviews will be DSA heavy, which is basically data structures and algorithm, which you can also say as coding heavy interviews. So one thing that we need to make sure is that we, being the student of and we wanting to work in some of these companies, we need to be good at DSA no matter what, because whichever company you go to, until and unless it's a it's a startup at a very first stage startup where it's just starting up, or only one round of funding has coming up, there it might be very development heavy interviews. But for most use cases, what you will find is your interviews will be coding related heavy. So you have to anyhow engage in such events, engage in such activities, and improve your DSA. So one part of it is required so that you crack these interviews. The second aspect to interviews is some of the companies, apart from DSA, also ask you come to the fundamentals case questions as well. So you need to also make sure which companies are those companies, and while preparing for a particular company, whenever you are scheduled for an interview, prepare that. The second aspect of what I was calling is, after you have cracked an interview and you are starting your job, whatever job you are starting out, whichever company, whichever place you are working at, right? So that job there, what will come in handy is the experience you get while doing projects on your own. So what I would say is both the things, doing coding as well as doing projects, are equally important. So we come to a very basic question as to there is one aspect which says that DSA is important. There is one aspect that says development is important. There's another aspect that says competitive programming is important. And like, what should one do? And is competitive programming really required? And why should I do development, or how should I do development? So obviously, as we have just read, the development is absolutely not necessary per se for cracking an interview. From that perspective, development is not necessary for most use cases. However, where development will play a role is, one, obviously, after you crack the interview and start your job there in any company, definitely the experience that you will get by building projects on your own will come in very handy. The second aspect where development comes in handy is obviously your resume. As you know, you will only get the online assessment link after you have submitted your resume, applied, and your resume is shortlisted. So for that purpose as well, you having good enough projects in your resume per se is extremely important, because see, as a hiring manager or as a recruiter who is scanning through resumes, what is the thing that they will try to see? Whether or not this particular person who he has applied here has coding skills or not. Obviously, that is extremely important. One aspect of looking into whether or not that particular person has a coding skill is obviously the online assessment that is given out, right? That is why it is given out specifically on DSA based questions. Second is whether or not this particular person, if selected, will be able to perform. And there as well, in that aspect as well, development do come in handy many a times. So always, whenever you're trying to choose a project, always think whether or not it brings value to you, or whether or not you're learning new things. There's no need to do very heavy, very big projects, not at all. And there are like very good and intuitive ways in which you can find out what kind of projects are generally done by people in the industry, and you can try and simulate similar kind of projects at a lower scale, at a smaller scale on your end as well, using different technologies, be it cloud specific technologies or anything on your own, and build up a project. Second important thing about doing development, or how to do development, is never just follow a particular course and do whatever is taught there. Why? Because what it essentially tells you, or what it essentially does, is basically it will not force you to think out of the box. It will not force you to look for issues that you come up with. Right? Whenever you are doing a project, it's not about just completing the project and getting it into the resume. It's about the experience that you get that will help you later on. So, and that experience you can only get when you are thrown into the ocean like that, and you have to figure out like what all things I should use, why using a certain technology is better. You should understand that with a course, what happens is generally all these things are predefined, that they say that we will be building XYZ project using this technology, and we do not actually essentially ask the basic important questions that are generally asked whenever you will be working. As to let's say you are working in some of the companies and you have a project to come to build some product or some service whatsoever, right? So the first question that will be asked is what tech stack you will be using and why you are using that tech stack, because you have to answer that why part of it. Because from one tech stack, from one backend language to another, from one DB to another, from one external service that you use to another, performance changes. There are different considerations that you need to make, cost considerations that you need to make, and so on and so forth. So there are like a number of considerations that you need to make based upon the type of project that you do, and based upon those considerations, the underlying tech stack, the underlying services change. And these kind of experiences you will only have when you are doing the project on your own rather than blindly following a course. The second thing, what it does is it helps you to inculcate the habit to do proper Google searches. So one thing that I have seen is, right, I have worked with interns that come in to our companies. I have worked with freshers who come directly into the companies out of college, right? And they do not generally have the habit to search things on your own. What they do, or what they generally tend to have, is directly ask questions to other people without putting that effort. And that effort is essentially required for you to put, because ultimately whenever you will be working in a professional world, it is more or less expected that you will be self-sufficient enough to be able to navigate issues on your own. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you nobody will give you help. No, people will give you help, but people will only give you help when they see that you yourself have put in effort to understand the problem. You yourself have put in effort to try and figure out a basic solution and are hitting a roadblock. If you don't have or don't inculcate that understanding, that attitude of searching on your own and building a project, that becomes extremely difficult a switch when you join a company. That's why having these experiences extremely important, and development will definitely give you that experience. The second question that we have here is competitive programming required? By CPI, you mean competitive programming. Now there is like it's an ongoing debate everywhere. Someone says that DSA is required, someone says that competitive programming is required, and these things will continue. So my take is nothing is required per se. Obviously, there will be people who has done only DSA and have cracked interviews. For example, if I take my case, I have never done competitive programming, and I have been able to crack interviews till now, and interviews at the different companies as well. So it's not that CP is required or CP is not required. There is no requirement per se. But doing CP, what does that do? Doing CP or competitive programming will essentially help you in improving your understanding of these data structures and algorithms involved. It will help in improving your problem solving skills. Same level of understanding can also be built by not doing CP and by taking the conventional path that there is. So there's no problem either ways. You can do CP, you can do DSA. Per se, these are like medium to achieve the end goal of having good level of skills in data structures and algorithm and problem solving. When I say that doing DSA from Geeks for Geeks or Lead Code, I do not essentially mean that the questions will come from Geeks for Geeks or Lead Code. That will probably not happen, or might happen as well, or doesn't matter. What I mean is do these not to just complete the question per se that is given there, but to have a good understanding of DSA, have a good understanding of what kind of problems can be asked, what are the underlying patterns that are present, have a good understanding of that. Having a good understanding of these will enable you to solve any unknown problem that is present. And that is what even CP will give you. Let's come and I will probably navigate through first to fourth year here. And probably we will discuss what all things are required from all the different years' perspective. So as a first year student, you are just starting out. So I would suggest that focus on a language at least and build proper base on a particular language. Because many times what I've seen is people do not build a proper base on a particular language and they directly start solving questions. And then what happens is they don't know specifics of a language, what all things are present, what all things can be used, and then they falter there. And then the cycle continues. They read a bit, they do it, and then they forget. So what I would say is pick a language and focus on it. Now your next question can be like, what language to pick, right? From an interviewing perspective, I would say that pick any of the three languages, Python, C++, or Java. Between these three languages, pick any one of them. That would be more than sufficient for most use cases. This, however, does not mean that you will only be developing applications or developing products in these three languages. Whenever you will be graduating and you will be joining a company as a software engineer, what is expected is, it's not expected that you will know everything. That is not at all expected, and that cannot happen. But what is generally expected is that as a software engineer, you are capable to pick up any language per se, whatever is required, as and when you are working. So so what is expected is you having the ability for contextual learning, which means learning on the go. So that is something that you should focus on building on your own whenever you are studying something. Since we have covered the first year students and you have now graduated to your second year. Second year, what you should do is development the way to go, or how to manage studies development and DSA. Now, obviously, is the time that is like you should focus on building good projects. Why I'm saying that you should start now rather than late is because as and when you go in a third year or in fourth year, the time to placement decreases, right? And since the time to your placement decreases, you should be focusing more on your placement related studies. And I would suggest that this is the time when you guys would be having sufficient amount of time in your hand in order to do development as well as DSA side by side. So obviously, as a second year student, at least I would advise do 1 or 2 projects at least and try and see how you can build something better. Try and see if you can learn something new. Try and see, let's say, for example, you're building some product or some project, whatever it's, and see whether or not you can integrate cloud specific services to it, right? Be it AWS, be it Google Cloud, Azure, everyone, both AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, anything. If you want to use something from there, right? Everyone has a free tier available. What is that free tier? Free tier means for one particular year, you can use these services. There are like hundreds and hundreds of services that you can use, and you can use them freely without having to pay any charge at all. Definitely go and check out different other, I would say, programming paradigms that are present. For example, one of them is blockchain, which I do not personally have much idea on, but hey, it's an interesting topic. And definitely right now, as a second year student, you have like an amazing opportunity with respect to the time that you have in your hand to go through these new different technologies that are present and try and understand what blockchain is, build something very basic using it, and then iteratively improve on it. So I would say that right now, along with obviously dedicating some time on DSA, you should definitely go and involve in these things from a development perspective as well. And now, obviously, study. Please do study. Whosoever says that CGPA doesn't matter, that might be loosely true. That CGPA doesn't matter, but ultimately your training and placement cell will provide you a cutoff for every company, and you have to pass that cutoff. So please do study and try and get at least a decent CGPA. As you are getting like 6 or 5 SIS CGPA, please do not do that, because ultimately, probably as a experienced professional, people will not look at that CGPA. I agree totally. But whenever you are going out, right, as a fresher, people will take a look at your CGPA. I would say that's the extent of things that you have done till now, right? That's the culminating point of the things that you have done till now, and there is no other way per se to actually judge whether or not you are better than another person who has done the same thing from your college. Go down the path of development, see different technologies, and see whether or not you can learn something new, and At the side, since from your third semester, I am assuming you should be having a DSA course as well in your college, right? So since you are now introduced to data structures and algorithm professionally by your teachers, probably start doing DSA, put more focus on it. Now your second year you have completed and have graduated to your third year. Again, there are like multiple things and multiple questions that come as a third year student, like whether I should do internship, whether I should not do internship at all and do preparations to the third year, but I have fourth year placement coming in and I cannot afford wasting those 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is in internships, because obviously internships will be grueling. Internships, you will have to devote time working on projects and you don't have time at all. So what to do, what not to do. And is off-campus opportunities for example, as a student, right, college student, we did not have any idea about any off-campus opportunities that were available at that point in time. So that was the level of information that we had, that we didn't have any information at all. And right now there is like a plethora of information that is coming in, and obviously you would have to be the judge for yourself as to what information to consume and what not to consume, definitely. So let us go through what you should be doing as a third year student now that you have graduated from the second year and you are entering the third year and stuff like that. Obviously, in your third year, you would have to start with finding out whether or not you want to do internship or whether or not you want to prepare. That's the first question that you need to answer. Let's say you have gotten an internship opportunity from a particular company, and you yourself are more or less certain that you don't want to work in that company at all. If you are certain that you don't want to work in that particular company at all, then I would suggest that do not do that internship, because ultimately you will be investing some time there doing the internship there, which is probably one of the most crucial phase of your let's say up till that point, crucial phase of your college life, right? Because after those 2 months, I'm assuming placements will start more or less in most of the colleges. The placement starts at around July, August, or somewhere around there, right? And even around that time as well, the off-campus opportunities also start picking up. So what I would say is always weigh that whether or not you want to work in that particular company wherever you have gotten an internship opportunity from. And if you do not want to work in that company at all, then do not go for that internship. Then obviously, if you do want to intern in different companies, definitely off-campus opportunities are available in different companies, and these opportunities will start coming up from in most of the companies. They will start coming up from July, August onwards for the next summer intern opportunities. So keep a lookout for that. Go through LinkedIn, go through their career site. Uh, I would say these two are the only place where you can actually definitely find it. And look out for opportunities as intern opportunities and apply. Always, I said, like ask for referral first, and you will be surprised how easy it is to get a referral. So ask for referral first, and if you get referral for those companies, that's great enough. Otherwise, apply directly. And for referrals, I would say that ask for referrals from folks who have lesser LinkedIn connections, maybe lesser than 10,000 connections. Otherwise, what happens is if someone has more LinkedIn connections, the number of messages is more or less correlated to the number of connections that particular person has, and your message will eventually get pushed down and missed. So look out for folks. Search it in LinkedIn. You can always have multiple filters in LinkedIn easily. Search for people who are working there and send out connections. And one more thing that as a third year student you should do is obviously expand your networking in LinkedIn. That is like very important. Why that is important is from an off-campus perspective as well. There are like many hiring managers, right? Even at Amazon, I have like many hiring managers who directly post it in their LinkedIn feed itself that we are kind of hiring SD1s, we are hiring university graduates, we are hiring this XYZ for our team. And these kind of things you will only know if you are either connected or if someone of your connection is connected, right? So it is always good to have good connections. And second reason why it is good to have connections is that you don't want to be in a position that you see a good opportunity, but you don't have any connections on that particular company, and you have to wait like 2-3 days to get a connection and then ask for referral, and that person not replying. Right? You don't want to be in that particular situation as a third year student. Essentially, what you will be doing is, see, practicing coding, practicing DSA is like permanent. You would have to do even now as well. That is something that is constant, and you will have to do it until and unless there comes a point where interviewing itself changes. But as of now, that's the case. So practicing DSA, whatever means, doesn't matter. But practicing DSA is important. So whatever you are comfortable with, do that. In your final year, one thing that I would say is having a job is better than having no job. So there are many folks out there which reject service-based companies, for example. Not saying that that's good or that's bad, but they do that, and then they end up not getting an offer from anywhere as well, and then they end up regretting the decision. So having a job is always better than no job at all. And see, getting into some company, whatever is that, it doesn't mean that you have to stay in that company forever, right? You can always switch, and switching a company after, let's say, just 6 months of experience as well, right, is very easy than getting into the company from off-campus opportunities as a fresher. Why? It's because there are like lakhs and lakhs of freshers who are applying for one or two job IDs that are available for university graduates. But as a 6 months hire, right, you are essentially treated as a lateral hire, which means you can get into the normal SD roles that are present, and you need not slot in that university graduate that is present. So having that 6 months of experience, what will do? It will open up SD1 roles for you throughout the organization, as well as the roles keep on coming all the time, right? The roles keep on coming every month or so, or whatever is the cadence of that, right? So it will keep on coming all the time. So you don't have just one or two roles where everyone is applying, but the number of applications gets distributed across all the roles. Not everyone is applying every time, and you, on an overall basis, have a good chance just because probability is with you, right? That's why it's very important to know that having a job is better than no job, because without any job, you will not have that experience. And if you don't have that experience, you will still be slotted in as a fresher, and it will still be relatively difficult to do. So having a job is always better than no job at all. Right now, it's not the time for focusing on development at all, because you don't have that time right now. And if you are thinking that you want to start development right now, I would again refrain against it. Don't do that. It requires time, it requires effort, and you don't have time right now as a fourth year or final year student, right? You want to get a job, you want to apply to different companies, and it's just not the right time to do that right now, development. And what is important at this point in time is obviously having a very good hold in DSA, having a very good hold in problem solving skills. So keep on improving that. And there are like ample of campus job opportunities that are available. Have a strong LinkedIn presence. Even if you are in a final year student and you have not started out, start now. Doesn't matter. In 4 or 5 months, you will have a strong LinkedIn presence. You will have a strong LinkedIn connections, and then you can start applying and asking for referrals easily. It doesn't mean that you cannot apply or ask for referrals even without a strong LinkedIn connection. It's just that it helps, because if people recognize you through some way, or if people know that you are in their connections from earlier on itself, it just builds an unconscious bias towards you, and they are more willing, or they're more open to help. It's just that. Having said that, you can get referral opportunities just by asking. So ask, and ask many people. Don't hold back in asking. At the end, believe in yourself, and anything is possible. Believe and become. But yes, there is a difference between only believing and not doing anything. That's why the 3 periods: you have to believe, you have to do your deed, and then you will become something successful. Thank you.